asking you, have you ever got to the end of a meal and felt super full physically, but not really satisfied? And if you're saying, yeah, that happens to me quite a bit, you are totally not alone. I think most people in the world end up overfull, but not satisfied. And so if you ever feel kind of guilty, remorseful, regretful, wishing you hadn't eaten so much, wondering how it all happened, you are totally not alone. And I want to share with you a big discovery that I have made in the last few years that have helped me and thousands of my clients figure out why they're eating to the point of, stuffed beyond full, and how to stop feeling so guilty in those instances, and how to make those instances less and less frequent. Because as we all know, if you eat in excess of calories, you're going to gain weight. It's just the way it is. So before I go on, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Charmaine Ironside, and I am the official diet dropout guru. I am passionate about helping women live their best lives in their best bodies without dieting. And living your best life means having freedom around food, peace around food, not having to be constantly guilty and remorseful and worrying about what you just ate and worrying about what you're going to eat. So I have struggled for many years, with my body image, with my relationship with food. I would probably define my relationship to my body and with food as a war. Since I was 11 years old, I bounced between 110 pounds and 200 pounds many times, and gained and lost hundreds of pounds in my life. And I like to show this photo because this was me just under 2 years ago. And I was about probably just over 50 pounds heavier than I am now. I was frustrated. I had sore knees, my back hurt. When I was walking up the stairs, I was out of breath. And the worst part was I was a fitness instructor and a fitness trainer, and I had all the knowledge in the world about nutrition. I had spent 8 years of my life as a competitive athlete, but I still couldn't get the weight thing figured out. And literally every meal and every snack was a constant war, whether I should eat it, shouldn't I eat it, am I doing the wrong thing? And so I really want to share this one discovery that really helped me find freedom around food. And when I found freedom around food, I actually ended up releasing body fat and releasing weight without dieting, because dieting does not work. It's just proven time and again. 95% of dieters gain back all the weight they lost, and most dieters only stick to their plan for 3 days. So that is not a way of living. So I want to just tell you a little bit about my aha moment. And so my aha moment was, it was a couple of years ago. It was almost 3 years ago actually. And I had gotten pregnant, and I was so excited. My husband and I were super excited to have a child. That was part of our vision for our life. And at around 7 weeks, I went for an ultrasound and found out that there was no heartbeat. And so, thinking about it now, it's so far, long ago, and now I do have a beautiful daughter who's almost 2, but it was one of the most devastating days of my life. And other than losing my mom to cancer, it was probably the most hard day of my life, because this hope and this dream for a little baby and a family was gone. And so, I know lots of miscarriages are a lot more common than people talk about, but what I did was I immediately called and ordered a huge amount of Indian takeout food. I went to the the 7-Eleven by my house, the convenience store, bought a huge Coke Slurpee, and I called my husband to make sure that we had rum. I told him, what had happened. And so I literally went home and I ate myself mindlessly into basically a food coma. And so I realized, I didn't realize it in the moment, but afterwards I realized how badly I felt, not just guilt and shame, but just physically my body was so unhappy with all of that excess of food, greasy Indian food, plus rum and a Slurpee. And I started to think about it, and I actually felt physically much worse, but now I also still had the grief of, losing my hope and dreams for a family in that moment. And I'm like, this just isn't working. eating my sorrows isn't working. And I've done it before. When my mom died, I actually ate an entire cheesecake. And that's why I find it so fascinating that people think that a diet plan is going to fix them. But if you are similar to me and you eat when you're stressed, and you eat when you're bored, and you eat when you're sad, and you eat, for all of this plethora of reasons that lots of us eat, then no diet is going to be sustainable, because stress is always going to happen. Sad things are always going to happen. And the key is figuring out how to deal with these things in the moment. And so I started to get better at feeling my feelings, which meant that I didn't need to eat to numb out how I felt. I started to reach out for help. I went to a grief support group. I talked to different friends who had had similar experiences. I wrote in my journal. I let myself actually cry, because a big part of my upbringing made it so that crying wasn't really acceptable. It wasn't really, allowed, I guess you could almost say. And so I learned not to cry, but to use food to pacify my emotions. And so emotional eating, a lot of people don't want to admit they're an emotional eater. I'm happy to admit it. I still struggle with it sometimes. But what's really helped me is to know that eating is never going to be the solution. It's a band-aid. It makes you feel good in the moment. It makes you feel distracted, but it never helps in the long term, and it makes us overweight. I didn't want to be this overweight person, fitness trainer, who didn't feel authentic or happy or zestful in my body. So that was my aha moment. No amount of diets, and I'd been on probably 30 by that point, was going to fix the problem, which was that I didn't know how to deal with my tough emotions. I didn't know how to handle stress. I didn't know how to handle frustration. I didn't know how to handle a lack of, self-care, of grief, of all these things. And so I started to seek out personal growth opportunities, different therapies. I went to different retreats. I read voraciously, and I started to figure out that until I got the inside right, the outside was never going to be what I wanted. And I was always going to be in a battle. And I don't want to be in a battle. And I don't think you want to be in a battle for your whole life. And unfortunately, many people are. And that's the reality. That's the sad reality. Some people will be in a battle with their body and with food for the rest of their life. But I don't want that for you. So my request from you is to think about it. Do you have tendencies to eat under stress, under pressure, under frustration, with anger, with sadness, with boredom? Are you turning to food to help make you feel better, even though you're not hungry, but to help you feel, spiritually better? Because the truth is, there's a couple things I've learned. Compulsive eating or mindless eating cannot happen if you choose to be aware. And so if you sit down to your meal and you're in your body and you breathe and you enjoy each bite, you can't overeat. You can't mindlessly numb out. And another thing is that a spiritual hunger can never be satisfied on a physical level. So needing to get your grief up and out, if you just stuff it down with food, it's not actually fixing anything. And so those are kind of two big things to think about. And so mindless eating could be anything from literally being like, I want to freaking numb out to my life, so I'm going to drink a bottle of wine, I'm going to eat a whole pizza, whatever, I'm going to eat a whole cheesecake like I did, I'm going to order Indian, more food than a full family could eat, and eat it in one sitting. That is mindless eating to the extreme. But a lot of people just eat mindlessly as they're driving in their car, eating breakfast, watching a movie and eating. That's mindless eating. Writing emails and taking bites of a sandwich between emails, that's mindless eating. And so I know that the path to finding your best body in a joyful way, not through dieting and restriction, because we all know that gets real old real fast. The path is to figure out why you're eating mindlessly, and maybe it's because you think you don't have time to slow down to eat and enjoy the amazing blessing that eating actually is, or maybe it's because you feel so uncomfortable in your life that food has become a drug for you, like it did for me. So I just want you to think about that. So that's my call to you. I want you to think about, is a diet really going to fix the problem, or is getting more in touch with yourself and learning better coping mechanisms the solution? So in my next video, I'm going to be talking about switching from a more mindless way of eating to a more mindful. And mindfulness is like this big catchphrase these days, and people are talking about it. It's not a woo-woo thing. You don't have to meditate as you eat. It's just literally sitting with your food and enjoying it without a million distractions, without being on your phone the whole time, without, being on the phone on a tough conversation at work, without, writing emails between bites, without driving. That's mindful eating, and its benefits are exponential. Releasing body fat is just the tip of the iceberg with mindful eating. So my next video, I'll be explaining mindful eating, why it's so amazing, how to do it, how to make it a practical thing in your life, even if you're a busy mom. I'm a busy mom. I have 3 businesses, and I still make eating a priority. And that has helped me release 50 pounds, over 50 pounds now of body fat, without dieting, without deprivation, and I know it's not coming back because this is just the way I live now. And the best part is I've kept the weight off for over a year. And I just got a call from one of my coaching clients, and she said, I had this victory, this success. I had this really stressful event happen with my family, and the old me would have, gotten a bunch of food and started stuffing it down because I would feel so uncomfortable. But instead, she wrote in her journal, she reached out to call a friend to talk about it, she went for a walk. Instead of skipping her workout, she went to a workout to get some of that stress off. And the amazing thing is, she's released over 50 pounds of body fat as well in the last 7 months. So, you might be an emotional eater. If you've watched this video to this point, you probably are. And just like Emily, who gave me that call recently, just like me, just like so many of my clients, if you can figure out how to cope with difficult emotions without eating, your weight will start to fall off, and it won't be a battle. And it's actually a really exciting thing to get more in touch with yourself, because when you can feel these stressful emotions and deal with them, you have so much more energy and happiness in the rest of your life. So if you'd like more videos like this, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Do it right now. Press subscribe. You'll get notifications when there's a new video. And I am just so excited to help you live your best life in your best body without dieting. As you can see, the diet dropout. I'm very proud to say I know the diet industry doesn't work for me or for anyone. It is a quick fix. It does not last.